While my entire family was singing happy birthday and celebrating my 18th birthday, my own father was secretly preparing documents to steal the only thing my grandparents had ever left me. Everyone thought I was just another teenage girl who knew nothing about money or the law. But what they didn't know was that my grandfather had been planning for this day for over 10 years, and his final surprise was about to destroy every plan they had made. My name is Emily Carter, and I grew up in a quiet town near Lake Tahoe, California. My grandparents owned a beautiful lakeside cabin surrounded by pine trees, crystal clear water, and mountains that looked breathtaking in every season. To most people, it was just another vacation cabin. To me, it was home. Every summer, I stayed there with my grandfather, William Carter, and my grandmother, Margaret. Grandpa William taught me how to fish, repair wooden fences, light a campfire, and respect nature. But the lesson he repeated most often had nothing to do with the outdoors. He would smile and say, "Emily, never judge people by what they say when life is easy. Watch what they do when money is involved. That's when you discover who they really are." At 12 years old, I didn't understand what he meant. I thought he was simply giving me life advice. Years later, I realized he had been warning me about my own family. My father, Michael Carter, had once owned a successful construction company. But after years of bad investments, unpaid loans, and poor decisions, the business collapsed. Creditors kept calling, bills piled up, and every month the pressure grew worse. Then there was my uncle, David Carter, a real estate investor who always claimed he could turn any property into profit. Whenever he looked at my grandparents' lake house, he didn't see memories or family traditions. He saw a $1 million property waiting to be sold. One evening, only a week before my 18th birthday, I accidentally overheard a conversation between my father and Uncle David in the garage. David quietly spread several documents across a table. "As soon as Emily turns 18, we'll get her signature. She won't even realize what she's signing. The buyer is already waiting." My father looked nervous. "And if she refuses?" David smiled. "She won't. I'll make sure she believes it's just paperwork." At that moment, my heart stopped. I had just discovered that the people I trusted most were planning to steal my grandparents' legacy. But neither of them knew. My grandfather had already seen this betrayal coming years before he passed away, and he had left behind a secret that would change everything. Emily didn't tell anyone about the conversation she had overheard between her father and Uncle David. The next morning, she sat at the breakfast table with a smile on her face, laughed when everyone else laughed, and acted as if nothing had happened. Deep inside, however, she couldn't stop thinking about their plan. Her grandfather William had once told her, "The smartest person in the room is often the quietest one." Instead of confronting her family, Emily decided to watch, listen, and wait for the right moment. Over the next few days, she began paying attention to every little detail. Her father received mysterious phone calls late at night and always walked outside before answering them. Uncle David visited the lake house almost every afternoon, sometimes staying inside for hours. Whenever Emily asked where he had been, he would simply smile and say he was checking on the property. His answers sounded normal, but something about his behavior made Emily suspicious. 3 days before her 18th birthday, Emily went to the lake house alone. The cabin looked exactly as she remembered it. Sunlight poured through the windows, the old wooden floors creaked beneath her feet, and the smell of pine filled the air. As she walked into her grandfather's study, she noticed fresh scratches on the wooden floor beneath his heavy oak desk. It looked as if someone had recently moved it. Emily immediately remembered seeing Uncle David leaving the room the previous day with dusty hands. Curious, she pushed the heavy desk aside with all her strength. Hidden beneath it was a small wooden trapdoor that she had never seen before. Her heart started racing. She remembered a tiny brass key her grandfather had secretly given her months before he passed away. At the time, he had smiled and whispered, "One day, this key will answer every question you have." She had kept it safely in her jewelry box ever since. Emily rushed home, found the small key, and returned to the cabin. With trembling hands, she inserted it into the old lock. The key turned perfectly. A soft click echoed through the silent room, and the trapdoor slowly opened. Inside was a waterproof metal box covered in dust. Resting on top of it was a sealed envelope with her name written in her grandfather's handwriting. She carefully opened the envelope. The first line of the letter made her eyes fill with tears. "My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, it means the day I feared has finally arrived. I knew there would come a time when someone would try to take this house from you. That's why I prepared everything, long before that day could come." Emily's hands shook as she continued, reading every word. Inside the envelope was also a business card for Sarah Mitchell, estate attorney, Reno, Nevada. Her grandfather had written one final instruction beneath the card. "Call her before you trust anyone. She knows the truth, and she has everything you need to protect your future." Emily stared at the card in silence. She had no idea why her grandfather had chosen an attorney in another state, but she knew one thing for certain. He had been planning for this moment for many years. Just as Emily placed everything back inside the box, she heard a car door slam outside the cabin. She quickly locked the compartment, pushed the heavy desk back into place, and slipped out through the back door. Hidden behind a tall pine tree, she watched Uncle David walk directly into the study. Without hesitation, he moved toward the same desk. Emily's heart nearly stopped. How did he know the hidden compartment was there? And what was he searching for? The moment Uncle David entered the study, Emily held her breath behind the pine tree. She watched through the dusty window as he walked straight toward her grandfather's old oak desk. Without looking around, he pushed the desk aside as if he had done it many times before. Then he froze. The hidden compartment was empty. Confused, he searched every corner of the room before slamming the trapdoor shut in frustration. Emily finally understood that her uncle had known about the secret hiding place all along, but he had arrived too late. That evening, Emily locked herself in her bedroom and dialed the number on Sarah Mitchell's business card. The attorney answered almost immediately, as though she had been expecting the call. After Emily introduced herself, Sarah remained silent for a few seconds before saying, "I've been waiting for this phone call for nearly 6 years. Your grandfather told me you would contact me only if you discovered the truth." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Everything her grandfather had planned was unfolding exactly as he had predicted. The following morning, Emily drove to Sarah Mitchell's law office in Reno. The attorney welcomed her into a private conference room and placed several thick folders on the table. They contained legal documents, trust agreements, bank records, and notarized letters signed by Grandpa William years before his death. Sarah looked directly at Emily and said, "Your grandfather never intended for this property to become part of the family estate. He knew greed would eventually tear your family apart, so he created an irrevocable trust to protect everything for you." Emily stared at the documents in disbelief. The lake house, the surrounding land, several investment accounts, and a college education fund had all been transferred into the trust years earlier. Legally, neither her father nor Uncle David had any ownership rights. On her 18th birthday, the trust would automatically become fully controlled by Emily. Her grandfather had protected her future long before anyone else realized there was danger. Just as Emily began to feel relieved, Sarah opened one final file. Her expression became serious. Inside was a photocopy of a real estate sales agreement. The seller's name was David Carter. The buyer was a luxury property development company. The asking price was nearly $3 million. Emily looked up in shock. "But Uncle David doesn't own the property," she said. Sarah nodded quietly. "Exactly. Which means someone may have committed fraud." Sarah explained that an anonymous source had recently warned her that forged ownership documents might already exist. If those papers were submitted before the trust was officially recorded, a long legal battle could begin. Every hour now mattered. Emily realized her family wasn't just planning to pressure her into signing papers. They might already be trying to steal the property illegally. As Emily left the law office, her phone began ringing. It was her father. His voice sounded unusually cheerful. "Don't forget," he said. "Your birthday party starts tomorrow evening. Your whole family will be here. We have a very special surprise waiting for you." Emily looked out the car window and quietly whispered to herself, "I think I'm the one who has the surprise." The day of Emily's 18th birthday finally arrived. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Colorful decorations covered the house. Relatives filled the living room. Children laughed in the backyard, and music echoed through the air. Everyone smiled as if this were simply a family celebration. But Emily knew the truth. Every smile was a plan that had nothing to do with her birthday. Before leaving for the party, Emily received a text message from Sarah Mitchell. It contained only one sentence. "Everything is ready. No matter what happens tonight, Do not sign anything. Emily locked her phone, took a deep breath, and walked into the house as if nothing had changed. As the evening went on, her father, Michael, acted unusually kind. He hugged her, introduced her to distant relatives, and kept telling everyone how proud he was of his daughter. Uncle David barely left his side. Every few minutes, they exchanged quiet whispers and glanced toward the black leather folder resting on the dining table. After dinner, Michael stood up and tapped his glass with a spoon. The room fell silent. He smiled warmly and raised his glass. Before we cut the birthday cake, we have one small family matter to take care of. These are just routine documents related to your grandparents' property. Once Emily signs them, everything will finally be settled. David immediately opened the folder and placed several documents in front of Emily. A silver pen rested neatly. On top of the papers, every eye in the room turned toward her. Emily slowly picked up the first page. She pretended to read it carefully, even though she already knew exactly what it was. It was a property transfer agreement that would hand over control of the lake house. She quietly placed the papers back on the table. Then she looked directly at her father. "I'm sorry," she said calmly. "I'm not signing anything." The room became completely silent. Michael's smile disappeared. David leaned forward. "Emily, you don't understand these legal papers. Just trust your family." Emily looked him straight in the eyes. "That's exactly why I'm refusing." Michael suddenly lost his temper. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" Emily remained perfectly calm. "Grandpa taught me that trust is earned, not demanded." At that exact moment, the front doorbell rang. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Michael frowned. David's face turned pale. When the door opened, Sarah Mitchell walked inside carrying a briefcase, followed by two officials from the county recorder's office. Sarah placed a sealed folder on the table. "Good evening," she said confidently. "Before anyone signs these documents, there's something this family needs to know." David's hands began to shake. For the first time that evening, he realized his entire plan was about to collapse. Pine trees, she remembered her grandfather's voice. Real wealth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by the promises you keep and the people you protect. She smiled, knowing she had kept the promise she made to him. The lake house remained exactly where it belonged, safe, protected, and filled with memories that no amount of money could ever buy. The end.